Hello everyone, this is Radhika Bhama and I welcome you to Accrets International Presents Multi-Cloud Strategy and Cloud Networking, What Happens When These Meet. Without further ado, let me brief you about today's agenda. I will not be taking much of your time. It's just I will be welcome and opening addresses all our speakers today. First of all, we have Teng Yeow. He's the technology advisor at Accrets International. He's IT professional with decades of experience in large corporations, architecting, deploying, and operating diverse technology solutions. Example: artificial intelligence, deep learning, data warehouse, IoT simulations, etc. He has in-depth domain knowledge in banking, telecommunication, oil and gas, media, pharmaceutical, and manufacturing industries. He will be our first speaker, and he will be explaining about the multi-cloud strategies. Second is she will be speaking about she is the GreenLake pursuit in HPE. Lim Ping. As a GreenLake pursuit, Ping has an experience in developing several GreenLake pay-per-use solutions for various workloads, including BURA, Big Data, VDI, to offer optimized pricing for organizations to scale their business with cost transparency and control. HPE GreenLake H2 Cloud Platform offer a cloud experience that can be deployed across all solutions, and it has emerged as an innovative new choice to unify your hybrid experience and power your data-first modernization, deliverability, flexibility, scalability, ease of operation wherever your applications and data save. And last is our Sander. He's the director of sales Teridion and is leading the sales in EMEA and APAC, including the expansion of the channel partner community. Teridion, a technology company based in Tel Aviv, can improve the performance of traffic over internet, especially when traversing a long distance across the multiple ISP. Teridion implements a global internet overlay network currently with more than 500 POPs that supplants the normal BGP routing protocol with its own protocol that minimize the packet loss and latency. Teridion can spin up a new POP in hours and is also leveraging SD-WAN technology being used, allowing user choice to SD-WAN vendor. So let's start with the Teng Yeow for the multi-cloud strategies. Hi, Teng Yeow.
Sorry, Radhika. Afternoon. Thanks for the introduction. I'm not seeing my slide though. Radhika. Okay, so thanks for joining us this afternoon. Okay, Accrets is a ISO certified multi-cloud managed service provider. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, this is a simple presentation agenda. We'll touch a little bit on the multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. Oh, sorry. Move back one or two slides, Radhika. One more slide. Okay, we'll first touch on multi-cloud and hybrid cloud strategy. We also look at some statistics of, what is the landscape like in terms of multi-cloud. Next, please, Radhika. Thank you. And we will look at a case for hybrid or multi-cloud and a strategy if you are looking at multi-cloud deployment. Okay, let's move on to the first slide. Why multi-cloud and hybrid strategy? Okay, I guess initially maybe about 7 to 10 years ago, there were very basic cloud offerings, maybe from AWS and later Azure, Google. But now there's a proliferation of cloud, different kind of cloud. So when you look at it, I think the importance in selecting multi-cloud is things like performances. Right? Some enterprises will need certain performance for certain application. Okay, in terms of could be speed, and at present moment, some people are looking at actually GPU and so on. Then the other stuff that you can think about is like service offering, right? A lot of cloud provider now provide software as a service, like Microsoft Office 365, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. Okay, some have very specialized AI offering as well, chatbot, IoT, and things like that. The next one you will probably want to look at is cost, because every organization have to balance between using CapEx or OpEx, and how you're going to optimize your cost such that you can run a very lean IT organization. Companies are also worried about business continuity and resiliency as well. Sometimes for some of our customers, we have strategies to load balance their applications across multiple sites. Some of them just need basic disaster recovery. So part of the consideration for multi-cloud and hybrid cloud strategy is business continuity as well. I think traditionally, a lot of companies have their own data center where they would have one location about 2 kilometers at least away from the other location, and providing kind of a redundancy. Now with multi-cloud, I think you can decide where your primary or your DR is going to be, right? The other consideration is geography, because some financial companies do not allow data to be out of the country. Yeah, so you may have to consider whether your cloud provider is within the country or outside the country. And in certain areas like China, for example, you have the bigger Chinese cloud like Tencent and Ali Cloud. Yeah, of course, the last but not least will be security. Yeah, you have to balance between availability and security. Of course, if you are going to have an application that's only going to be used by one person, then you don't really need to put the server somewhere else. You can put it in its room and lock it up. That's probably the most secure. And I guess the least secure is to put it on the public internet. Yeah, but a lot of applications needs to be publicly available, like some of the brokerage house that we are taking care of. They have trading environment that has to be kind of publicly available for people to do trading. Yeah. So a multi-cloud strategy, you have to look at all these different 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different parameters that you have to balance. Yeah, and it could be very daunting. Yeah, it could be very daunting. But later on, I will tell you a little simple strategy that you can work on to start looking at your multi-cloud journey. Okay. Radhika, can we have the next one? Okay, some statistics. I think a lot of people think most companies are on public cloud. Unfortunately, the truth is 89% of organizations actually have a multi-cloud strategy, either in place or underway. Okay, 80% of large enterprise adopted a hybrid cloud infrastructure. Okay, so it's not just public cloud, they also have a private cloud, they also have on-premises cloud, and so on. On average, most organizations will have about 2.6 public cloud that they use and 2.7 private cloud that they use. So no company, if I'm not wrong, is fully either Microsoft Azure or AWS or Google, right? So it's purely a multi-cloud strategy. Can we move on to the next? Okay, this chart is a very, very interesting illustration. Yeah, if you look at it, 7% uses multiple public cloud. Okay, that means basically they are purely public cloud, right? But they also don't use a single public cloud. Single public cloud is only just 9% of the total 100%. Okay, single private cloud is 2%, even smaller of the entire 100% enterprise that is surveying this. Okay, 89% actually are on multi-cloud already. 89% are actually on multi-cloud. With the 89%, 7% uses multiple public cloud, 2% uses multiple private cloud, and actually the majority of them, 80%, uses many different cloud providers, whether hybrid, public, private, on-prem. Okay, can we move on to the next slides, please? Okay, so a case for hybrid cloud. Can we move on to the next slide? Thanks, Radhika. So sorry to have you to help turn the slide. Okay, these slides illustrate a little bit of just now I mentioned, you know, what kind of different services that most cloud provider provide, or if your cloud provider just provide infrastructure as services, you know, you could subscribe platform as a services from other people or software as a services from other cloud provider as well. So there's no worries about it. So the basic three flavors of cloud is software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. Okay, and those can be actually be on the public cloud. It could be private cloud, but most of the time it will be hybrid. Yeah. Next, please. Okay, these are based on the survey. And if you see 50% of the time, people cited cost optimization, you know, in terms of using a multi-cloud strategy, right? Because though most people think a public cloud is cheap, yeah, but a lot of companies after moving to the public cloud realize that, you know, the instance cost and especially the bandwidth cost can be very daunting. Yeah, I have a case of a customer who actually use an instance that's 500 US a month, but they run up 5,000 for the same month for the bandwidth usage. So a total of 5,500 just for one instance. So we have to take a look, right? Not just everything public cloud, everything private cloud. You know, look at the 6 factors that I mentioned earlier, and you can probably optimize your cost better. Okay, the other 45% actually says that to extend the IT capacity of on-premises infrastructure. And most of these people may say, okay, if I have a small app that I need to put on the put for public use, then maybe let's give it a try, right? And I don't have to buy new hardware, set it up, you know, have you know, professional services to have everything mounted and so on, right? So I could subscribe an instance cheaply, like 300, 500, and try it out. Yeah. And at the present moment, even for our company, we are developing apps that is not a traditional. Yeah, we are developing containerized apps. Everything as microservices. So for those kind of infrastructure, maybe it's a little bit difficult if you are not experienced to set up your own on-premises kind of services. So as a start, we are actually using AWS, Azure, and Google as well. Okay, and about 34%, looking at backup, disaster recovery, or business continuity. Yeah, traditionally, business continuity is actually, you take another secondary site and then you put some equipment there for continuity planning. But nowadays, you could just say, okay, I have a private cloud or public cloud, help me with the DR kind of stuff. Yeah, so I don't have to build out my own equipment. Okay, the other reasons are below. You can quickly take a look. And of course, later, if you have any questions, you can actually post it in the Q&A. Radhika, next, please. Okay, I'll try to run through faster for a couple of these because I think I may have exceeded my time. There are pros and cons for public cloud, pro and con for private cloud. Of course, public cloud, as I mentioned before, sometimes can be very expensive on the bandwidth because these are not sized when actually you go into a public cloud. So it's by usage, and that could actually blow your budget. But pros, definitely, you have highly scalable, a lot of modern technology that you can actually use on the public cloud. Next, please. Okay, for the private cloud, when I was working for HP provided private cloud as well. Yeah, that was quite a while ago, probably about 10 years ago. The reason we sell that is that a lot of customers are not comfortable with security on the public cloud. Yeah, but I think now the public clouds are actually safer, but no matter what, the public cloud is still not as safe as private cloud because you have better security and policy control. Okay, you also have flexibility in terms of the connectivity, so you don't want to pay actually bandwidth. But of course, the disadvantage, you need to do an investment. You need highly skilled people to build and maintain it. Radhika, next, please. Okay, strategy. I'm come to the last portion of my presentation. So as I mentioned earlier, with so many things to consider, what should you be looking at? Yeah. A lot of people actually get confused and say, hey, I want to do multi-cloud and so on and so forth. And I told them that actually you should think of it as maybe a digitization journey rather than, looking at the solution immediately. Okay, so I look at 4 different steps that we can take to look at your digitization strategy. Radhika, next. Okay, when I was working on Y2K, back please. Radhika, thank you. When I was working on Y2K, I said, oh, we got so many and which one should we do and so forth. I think the most important thing is to take stock of your inventory first, especially applications and all the IT infrastructure you have. Yeah, you don't have to put detailed, a detailed list of things, but at least be able to take stock and say, okay, how many applications are we supporting? Yeah, and what kind of infrastructure are they on? Okay, then the next step, of course, then you list the important application. I think a lot of company, the first thing that come in mind is, oh, my SAP is the most important. Yeah, that's the financial application. Okay, then maybe my CRM, yeah, things like that, or maybe my e-commerce site, you know. So you need to take a look at all the inventory you have. Look at the importance in terms of list it down, prioritize, especially you see, you know, you cannot change your entire company application nor infrastructure overnight, right? So you have to look at priorities as well. For example, hey, is this application 2.0 something that we need to look at refreshing? Or let's say, okay, this infrastructure, you know, is 2.0, we need to refresh here and there. So look at the important application and then prioritize everything. Yeah. So step 1, take stock. Step 2, list and prioritize. Step 3, I think is important because application space, infrastructure, and technology changes very fast. If I have an app to deploy to the public, I'll probably be looking at redeveloping everything using container and microservices rather than say, okay, I buy a new set of hardware and replacing them. Yeah. So look at the technology landscape, what is available, and then decide, you know, how should you go forward in migrating your application. And finally, very important, you know, my first job as an IT manager, my boss was telling me that, you know, Teng Yeow, you cannot, even if you can, I'm not going to give you 100 million budget this year to finish doing everything. Okay, so build a roadmap based on the 3 steps, right? The knowledge of your company direction, very important, because if your company is pivoting to something else, why replace old application? Yeah. So company direction and the information you collected in step 1, 2, and 3, look at it, build a roadmap, and then you know, based on the roadmap, start digitizing and refreshing your entire IT applications. Okay, next one, please, Ridika. Okay, this is a solution stack that Accrets is providing, and I think, oh, sorry, can you move back to the last slide, please? There's one very important thing I forgot to mention. If everybody thinks that the picture on the left is just some ordinary picture and so on, actually it's not. Okay, if you look at clouds, for example, you don't see a single cloud, right? It's kind of funny if you see in the sky a single cloud. Yeah. So there's actually multiple clouds, big ones, small ones, and they are actually intersecting with each other. So the IT landscape in future is similar to the picture on the left. Okay, you will never see one big block of cloud. Okay, cloud is supposed to be multi. There are big ones, there are small ones, they're intersecting each other. So I thought that was very meaningful. That's why I brought up the picture and put it over here. Yeah, so have some consideration and look at, you know, it and think through, you know, what it really means. Okay, Radhika, next one, last slide, please. Okay, this is our solution stack, something similar with that cloud that you see. Okay, we are also a multi-cloud provider. Not just multi-cloud provider, we also can provide managed services as well. We work with lots of different partners. We work with Alibaba, we work with Microsoft, we work with Google, etc. And I think, oh, those are the public cloud. I forgot to introduce my colleague, actually, HPE. Well, I came from HP. I worked in HP for at least 10 years, before I leave and join Accrets. Okay, so I'm very familiar with HP and the service offering they have. And I probably need to thank them for the opportunity to learn and grow as well. So of course, the other one that I want to look at seriously is the Teridion. SD-WAN is very important if you have a multi-cloud strategy, which I think Sanders will touch on later. So without further ado, I think I can pass over to the next speaker, Lim Ping. Thank you.
Thank you, Teng Yeow. And thanks for the opportunity to speak here as well for HP in this Accrets webinar. I think just now, actually, your analogy about the IT landscape with the clouds was very interesting. It was the first time I heard of it as well. Okay, I think my slides are coming up. Thanks, Radhika. So hi everyone, my name is Ting and I'm a GreenLake pursuit at HP. So today I'll be going through a bit more on the GreenLake model, which is our as a service consumption model, in case some of you have not heard of it. And without further ado, I'll just begin. Next slide, please. Okay, thanks a lot, Radhika. Yeah, so before I dive right into it, I just wanted to go through this slide on data first modernization, which is really HP's trend moving forward as well. We all know that data now we see as an asset and a currency, so to speak, because it's created at a very staggering pace, whether it's at the edge or also on the cloud. And what we really want to do with this data is to be able to collect, process, analyze, and essentially to derive insights from it so that we are able to use these insights to generate decisions that can enhance customers' experience. So when we talk about data, right, what I really want to mention here is that even though, Radhika, can we go to the next slide, please? Even though data and application, most of them for organizations, they're moving them to the public cloud. However, I think as Teng Yeow mentioned just now also, there's a multi-cloud strategy. And in this case, for hybrid cloud strategy, that we see that the reality is that 70% of these applications and data still remain on-premises. I think there are a variety of different reasons for it. A lot of them are touched by Teng Yeow previously, whether it's security, latency, performance, so on and so forth. So I won't dive too deep into it. But I want to highlight here is that now the question is not about whether to move to the public cloud or to remain on premises, but what kinds of workloads that organizations wish to move to the public cloud and what they want to actually keep on premises for such reasons. And that is where the HP GreenLake bring the experience to you model really comes in. Next slide, please. Okay, so you see the heading here, HP GreenLake, the cloud experience everywhere. And what we really hope to bring to our customers is to bring the cloud experience they have on public clouds down to our premises, whether it's at the edge or today if you don't have your data center, then at co-location areas as well. And if you think about what organizations actually seek for in the public cloud, it can be summarized by the few pointers below. Firstly, pay per use. You pay according to whatever you consume. Secondly, the flexibility to scale up or provision as and when you need. So today for GreenLake, if you're able to tell us your starting BOM, and then sometime down the road, you actually see you want to scale up in terms of increase in capacity, you can do it with a very simple change request. So you will not have to go through very long procurement cycles as you used to in the past. And lastly, in terms of manageability, you see there's self-service eligibility and managed for you. So self-service eligibility is more in terms of our SaaS platform, GreenLake Central, that I'll go through a bit more later on. And manage for you, of course, with our services together with Accrets Managed Services to actually manage the environment for you as the customer. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so if you think about, you may be wondering what does a GreenLake solution actually mean, or you don't really get what does GreenLake mean because the name might seem very unfamiliar to you. If you look on the left-hand side, right, the solutioning of it, they are made up of three main components, HP hardware, third-party software, as well as services by HP and our partner Accrets. And then these three different components wrapped around with the pay-per-use model that is depicted here by the dotted line. So today we also have a lot of technological partners that you can see on the right that have partnered together with us. So whether it's for data protect software like Cohesity, Commvault, Veeam, so on and so forth, OEM partners, Microsoft and Red Hat. and then additional as well for like big data, Cloudera. We have a lot of different partners that can come together with us and package together their solutions in this GreenLake model that you see on the left in the triangle. Next slide, please. And today, in front of you, you will see this catalog of cloud services. So for HP GreenLake, we started quite a while back. We've been doing this for a number of years, 10 plus years, and it used to be called flexible consumption model. So along the way, we have also increased the catalog of cloud services. And just recently, I think last month, this was announced that we have like 50 plus cloud services as of now, and they can be categorized under the different categories that you see over here. So whether it's for AI ML, which is now a very big thing, or data protection, that's important for every organization, you can see what is available here. For most of them, we have the reference architecture, and some of them for local Singapore, if you're overseas, it's like on the way. So you have any requirements today for your workloads and solutions that you think fit the GreenLake model as I continue to explain it, feel free to reach out to Accrets and we can also connect as well. Next slide, please. Okay, going through a bit on the commercials, right? Maybe wondering how does the commercials for GreenLake actually look like. I'll start off from the right. So if you look at the right, the green box over there, you will see that there's 100% of installed capacity on the rightmost. So the installed capacity is essentially what is installed on the customer's premises or on co-location data centers if you don't have your own data center. And this 100% can be further broken down into 80% of reserve capacity, or what we call the minimum commitment level, and 20% of variable capacity. So for this 80% of minimum commitment level, what it means is that if today you utilize anywhere below 80%, you will charge based on this 80%. And if you utilize anywhere above 80%, let's say example 90%, you will charge on the 90%. So the variable capacity of 20% essentially is a buffer you can tap into and only pay for as and when you use it. Okay, and then moving on to the left-hand side in terms of the pricing, right? Here I put in 3 different billing tiers or configurations that I will be using to depict this example. So just to emphasize, the prices here are only for illustration purposes, and for different projects, of course, there'll be different unit pricings. And using the first row, the server tier as an example, right? With the different, if you have a growth that is catered for today, you'll be able to receive a band pricing, then 1 to 4 as you see on the slide here, and respective unit pricing. So as an example, for GreenLake, we bill monthly in arrears. So let's say in month 1, you utilize 500 CUs, you fall under band 1, and you'll be charged based on $3.26 for these 500 CUs that you utilize. But let's say in month 2, you utilize 1,000 CUs, and then you fall under band 2. Then what I want to highlight here is that you'll be charged $3.14 on the entire 1,000 CUs. So it's not the case where the first 580 is charged based on band 1 and only the next 120 is charged based on band 2. So what I want to say here is that as you increase your utilization of capacity, you will be charged based on lower unit pricing, and that's why you can see the economies of scale when you utilize more. Okay, and if you look at the unit of measure column, that is something I want to highlight as well. For GreenLake, the flexibility for unit of measurements is there. So for example, today for server, here is using VM as an example. So I've put the unit of measurement as CU, but it's also possible to meter in RAM GB, or today if you prefer to meter by server on-off, or not say meter lah, but be charged based on server on-off, that is also possible. And then for storage, typically TB, GB, TIB, GIB, and then networking that is relevant to your solution. Okay, so just a quick example on the commercials. Next slide, please. Okay, so in this slide, I'll aim to actually depict, then my Radhika can continue clicking until the end of the slide, then I'll just speak through it. So in this slide, I'll aim to depict 2 value propositions of GreenLake. So if you look at the purple slide over, if you look at the purple line over there, is what is shown as a traditional purchase. I think all of you will be very familiar with that. Put in a bit of tender at the start, sometime down the road, you could require additional hardware. Then you put in another bit of tender and you get additional capacity, so on and so forth. But what is actually utilized by organizations like yours nowadays can be depicted something like the light blue line. So it's not increasing in a very linear, straight fashion, but it tends to fluctuate as it increases because your utilization of capacity fluctuates as well. And if you compare the purple line versus the light blue line, in the middle, what you see is actually over-provisioning, meaning your hardware is on premises, but you don't actually utilize it at the start. And what it essentially translates into is cost savings. So if you look at the bottom right part in the words, right, you see that statistics show that over-provisioning actually takes place for organization, 59% for compute and 48% for storage, which is quite rampant. So what GreenLake does for you is that we right-size the hardware for you from the start so that we help you to eliminate this over-provisioning. Okay, and then coming into the point in the middle that this other line is pointing to, right, when the light blue line exceeds the traditional CapEx line, meaning in these instances, right, if you go by a traditional CapEx model, you might face slow performance or downtime because you're actually exceeding what is actually available on premises. But for GreenLake, because we have this buffer portion that is catered for you, you can tap into the buffer whenever you have these spikes and only pay for it when you tap into this buffer. So another value proposition of GreenLake is that we help to provision capacity ahead of demand to ensure that you do not have slow performance or downtime. Okay, and then the last dotted line green line at the bottom is nothing but to illustrate the minimum commitment level that I went through previously. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so very quickly, just to compare these three different models, traditional purchase, all of you know, upfront payment, leasing the same amount of money, just amortize over a period of time, whether you are paying in months, so on and so forth. And for HP GreenLake, pay-per-use model, so we actually meter accordingly and bill you accordingly to what you use, as long as it's above the minimum commit. Anywhere lower minimum commit, you'll be charged based on minimum commit. And another role that I want to highlight here is the infrastructure utilization. So if you look at traditional purchase and leasing, the infrastructure utilization is only 40 to 75%. And this is related to what I highlighted earlier on the over-provisioning, which is intuitive because organizations today, if you're not sure how much capacity you require a few years down the road, you tend to over-provision first, so that as and when you need it, it's already there, but they don't tend to utilize all of it. Compared to GreenLake on the rightmost, where I was already highlighting earlier, it's near 100% because we right-size the infrastructure for you today. And as and when you require to grow, increase your capacity usage, you put in simple change requests, and then we put in the hardware on your premises, and you can use them when you require it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I'll be going through a bit on GreenLake Central, which is our SaaS portal, a single portal, as you can see on the slide here, to really gain deeper insights and data that you can take action upon. Okay, Radhika, can you help me to click 4 times? I think all the different features will appear. I'll briefly go through the features that are available here. Firstly is the monthly charges summary, which will be relevant for the finance department or CFO. As the name suggests, you'll be able to see your monthly charges, essentially your utilization per month based on the different billing tiers, whether it's compute, storage, or networking, the respective pricings, unit pricings that apply to that, and the total costing for it. So a very simple kind of view of your monthly charges as you would see in a public cloud. Continuous compliance only as and when it's relevant to you. So what you will get over here, right, is that if required, based on the country that you are in, there'll be specific modules that apply to the different compliance kind of standards in your country, and then be able to select modules that you require, and this continuous compliance module will be able to actually tell you if you meet the standards or not. Okay, HP GreenLake Private Cloud, moving to the bottom right. If it's relevant, if you have a private cloud, then you'll be able to actually deploy instances or provision instances, applications through the portal itself. And lastly, capacity planning summary, which I think is quite important, which is on top of being able to view your utilization, right, you'll also be able to forecast. So for example, based on the past 3, 6, or 1 year where you see that your utilization is stable, you can use this data to forecast for the next 3, 6, or 1 year. So meaning this helps you to, again, have capacity ahead of demand when you actually need the capacity is already there on your premises. So what happens here is that there's a dedicated account support manager that will be assigned to every different end user account. So this person will also help you to monitor this environment, and as and when they see that you require additional capacity, they can also recommend it to you for you to scale up at this point in time. And there'll be, if you go into like the details of capacity planning, right, you'll be able to see that you will be notified, or essentially the person who is monitoring the environment through GreenLake Central for you, they'll be able to have a view of whether you tap into the buffer for an extended period of time, which is in a sense dangerous, because if you spike up more than that, then again you might have slow performance downtime. So this person, the ASM, will also be able to inform you of that for you to actually provision a capacity ahead of demand. Okay, next please. Yeah, so I've gone through the main value propositions of GreenLake. I'm just coming to the summary of what I've gone through. So if anything, if previously you couldn't didn't really follow what I was trying to say, this slide actually gives you a bird's eye view of all the value propositions of GreenLake. From lower of cost, if you look at the first column over there, provisioning, paying only for what you use to eliminate over provisioning. And in terms of the cost portion, you won't be over provisioning. So you're really paying for whatever is installed on your premises and whatever you utilize. Payment. In terms of payment or financial wise, no upfront payment. So this helps you to optimize your cash flow because you don't have to fork out that much of money at the start of the contract itself, like in a capex model. In terms of time to value, we have the buffer capacity over there, again, to tap on as and when you require and to be paid for only when you utilize it. Then number 4, change order process. Again, when you require scaling up today, you can put in a very quick change request to avoid long procurement cycles that typically might take a while to actually happen. And lastly, on the last column, in terms of metering and operational, I'll group them together in terms of services offering, whether it's from HP or Accrets, to help you to manage your environment and offload your IT department people from any mundane tasks. In a sense, to help you to manage your environment so that you can focus on more value-added projects. Okay, and I think with that, I've come to the end of the presentation. Next slide, please, Radhika. Okay, thank you. Yeah, and next I'll pass to Anders.
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon. This is Sander from Teridion. I think you can hear me, waiting for the slides. Hey, Teng, that was quite an interesting slide with your clouds because interesting thing, I'm based in the Netherlands. And as you know, in the Netherlands, we always have rain and we have a lot of clouds. So I think this is the reason why we have a lot of cloud adoption in the Netherlands. I'm waiting for my slides. So I'm based in the Netherlands, working at Teridion. And I think the reason why I started with the first slide to start again with the solution stack, I think we can all agree that the world is changing rapidly. In the sense that even a bit more than 10 years back, I was working at Nokia mobile phones. And hey, if you say Nokia mobile phone, you can even imagine that we were working with one slide back, please, Radhika. So you can even imagine that you were working with a mobile phone. I'm working with a MacBook. I'm sitting in the Netherlands. We have Microsoft Teams. I'm having an iPad next to me. And we were just discussing the migration to the cloud. It's very hybrid, can be on-premise, can be public, can be private. We even came out of a situation with 2 years of COVID that 2.5 years back, we were all sitting in the office. Companies were updating their networks. Then suddenly, people moved to their home and now we're sitting full-time at home. And I think going forward is going to be a very hybrid. You look at maybe my background, it's my home office. It looks like an office, but it's a home office. And my colleagues are all based in Tel Aviv. So yes, this is sort of the European office, but going forward, this is not going to change. So networking, of course, Lim Ping would say the cloud is the most important piece. I would say the network is, of course, the most important piece. But I think, of course, it's a combination of both. You need a network to sort of have a good network and cloud performance. Because if you look at the picture, this is in essence exactly what we're discussing on a daily basis with customers. You have people sitting at home. You have people sitting in the office. You have an HQ maybe in Malaysia. You have a branch office in Amsterdam, Netherlands. You are using Salesforce based in the US. You're using SAP based in Germany. We don't know even anymore where the application is hosted. So it's quite a struggle for companies to really give the customer good performance. Next slide, please. And this is, of course, the reason, well, not the reason, but one of the reasons why we see and why we discuss very often with companies, hey, why do you see an outage? Why do you see productivity going down? And of course, connectivity is quite key. It sounds strange, but I'm sitting in the Netherlands. You guys are all sitting in Asia, Singapore mainly, at the HQ at Accrets. For me, it's still amazing that we have this call with probably an audience from different countries globally. and it's just working fine. We have great sound, we have great video, it's just working fine. But of course, it's due to the network, it's due to the Teams application, how it's sort of decentralized over the data centers of Microsoft. It is just working fine. And this is going forward, the new way of work. So we don't know even anymore, where's the application hosted, where are the people sitting. Next slide, please. And I'm going to explain, of course, why we are doing this as Teridion, but I just want to give you a bit of highlight. So we also did a survey a few months back, I think it was 2021, and you see the main topics, the main challenges for companies are really, how are we going to connect to the cloud? How can we help our users, our employees, sitting at home, sitting at the office, sitting maybe in a hotel, because hey, the office is not the physical office anymore as it used to be, that building with a computer and with a physical cable. No, my office is sometimes even my iPad, because I'm traveling, sitting in a hotel, I need to do a webinar. Hey, then my iPad in my backpack is just my office, my moving office. So really that big challenge, how are we going to connect an office and also a user to the cloud? That is really the main challenge, what we see also from the survey. Next slide, please. Next to that, I think in the same survey we saw that, of course, if you are only having a company with offices in, let's say, Netherlands, or only in Spain, or only in Singapore, then internet only, it's good enough. There's not really a challenge. We have seen already 2 years back that the internet at home was way better than the internet at the office. And again, this is also causing quite an interesting situation, because it's now going to be hybrid. I am paying, I think, 50 euros a month for more than 300 megabits. In some countries, this is very expensive. Some countries, it's very cheap. But 300 megabits, I didn't have in my office, in my traditional office experience. So I went to IT, hey, give me a bit more bandwidth. But of course, this is an easy question, but a very difficult answer. So also with companies with multiple offices around the world, we see a lot of challenges. How can we make this connection very reliable? Next slide, please. And this is, of course, the reason what we are doing today. So we are a technology company based in Israel, 55 people. We founded in 2013, and we are mainly discussing with companies, how can we give you a very high performance, reliable and compliant connection for all your users, your offices, your cloud around the world. So in essence, we built some sort of a platform, and not some sort, we have a platform where we are leveraging the cloud. So again, this is also coming back that we are using the cloud to give good cloud performance. And this sounds maybe a bit silly, but we are building a service on top of Microsoft, AWS, Google, Oracle, Alibaba, Tencent. So we are using all these cloud providers to run our service. And if you connect all these data centers of all these cloud providers together, we have a huge footprint of, let's say, entry doors, how we can connect our customers. So next slide, please. So if you then literally look at the map, and this is not even all the POPs, but we have about 500 POPs today live. So in Africa, in Chile, in the US, in the Netherlands, in China, in Singapore, in Australia. And these POPs are all together combined as one big platform. So this is the platform where we can give our customers global, high performance, reliable connections. And it's just that easy that it can be an IoT sensor, it can be a user, it can be an office, it can be an on-premise cloud, it can be a public cloud, it can be Salesforce. We can connect all these different, what I call assets, easily to the platform in 24 hours, because the platform itself is up and running. The global network is up and running. So next slide, please. So if you then would combine this, and just to give you an example, we have, for example, together with Accrets, a great customer with an HQ in Malaysia. They have mobile users in China. They have scattered around different cloud applications. These guys are also using different CPE devices, different security. And this is also the reason why we work with different security vendors. So we work with Checkpoint, we work with Fortinet, we work with Palo Alto, because all these existing firewall and SD-WAN edge devices can be connected easily to the platform. So it's literally only 24 hours, the time that we need to connect that customer, whatever it is, can be an IT sensor, can be an office, can be a user, to the platform. And you can imagine, as soon as we connect the FortiGate device in the China office with the POP in China, and we connect the Salesforce or the SAP application, the cloud in Germany, also to the platform, hey, then we establish that connection in 24 hours, high performance, reliable. And it's really that easy, because the network is all up and running. And I think if you go back to my first sentence, the world is changing, and I think Lim Ping did a great presentation regarding the world is also moving into a consumption model. So you don't want to buy a project anymore, you want to buy whatever you're using. So really as a service based on consumption. And this is exactly what we do. So the more you put traffic on the backbone, the more you need to pay. Fully as a service, we only have 2 SKUs. So it's really, really easy to sort of, because hey, this is the big question mark. Where's the world going? Is it going to be very hybrid? Is everybody going back to the office? I'm even, and I don't want to say it, but I'm even a little bit worried that maybe somewhere in September, October, with the winter coming in, then maybe COVID is coming back. So hey, it's also going to be very hybrid, all in the open, back to the office, at home. I don't know, but this is for networking wise, for networking people, and for the CTO, of course, also quite a headache. So what is the world going to do? I don't know. If you would ask me 10 years back, Nokia would become the #1 with the best mobile phone and the smartphone. Nowadays, Nokia is, well, doing a little bit different with Android today, but we all know that iPhone did a great job with market share, with iPad, iPhone, etc. So I'm not going to make a bet where the world is going into 10 years, but for sure you want to have a very flexible network to be used for your network, for your offices, etc. Next slide, please.
Actually, Sanders, we have a survey actually in Singapore when we are trying to move back to office. I think 60 to 70% of the people are saying they are not going to, work full time in the office. So I think, especially for Accrets, we are in multiple locations. Yeah, with 2 office area, Singapore and China. But I mean, we have staff working all over the place and 24/7. So it's going to be that way, hybrid way of.
Absolutely, I can only fully agree, and I think all what we learned, but also not only from an employer perspective, but also for the employee. I think what we have seen for the last 2 years, that working at home full time, it's possible. It's very efficient. I think employers, where they were complaining 2.5 years back, oh, I don't want the people to be at home because I don't trust them, and maybe they're going to do some groceries instead of the work. I think they have seen that they are even online way more than before. They are very committed. They love it. I think the balance between work and private life, I've never done it other way, because hey, I'm always was in a sort of sales job, so I was always working from home. But really, the combination of work and also the time with the kids, I think it even gives me more commitment to work hard for the boss, of course. So I think this is going to be the new way of work, very hybrid. So if you then sort of summarize it, the network is going to be very hybrid, the cloud environment is going to be very hybrid, the way of work is going to be hybrid, everything is going to be very hybrid. And this is my last final closing slide. So I think, again, fully agree with Lim Ping. The world is changing into an as-a-service, consumption-based. Going forward, the world is going to change again. I don't know where it's going, but for sure it's going to be very hybrid. The network is going to be very key. It is already key. So I think it makes sense to sort of, together with Accrets, also deploy a network on an as-a-service basis, fully managed by a specialist. Not fully do-it-yourself, but really best of breed, where you have a lot of flexibility. And if there is going to be a big change due to maybe a new COVID, sorry, I had to say it again, but I don't really hope it, of course, but then you also want to be, and you need to be, very flexible with your network. So having said that, this last slide, thank you very much. I think we can now hand over to Radhika Joshua for the possible Q&A session.
Okay, I'm Joshua. I'll take us through the Q&A session. I think we have about 5 minutes left. Just in case you overrun, I'm not too sure if this program will just terminate suddenly. But in case it terminates suddenly and you still have questions, please email us so we can still continue to address. If you have any question, on the top right hand of your screen, there is a question mark. You can drop down and we'll show the Q&A and then we can answer your questions. Okay, so while you're typing out your questions, maybe I see there's a question, maybe a quick, okay, if we are considering private cloud, what should we consider in terms of on-premise or data center based solution? How would you advise? Maybe can I direct that question to Teng Yeow?
Yeah, I think I would say, please look at your application requirement first, right? Rather than jumping to a solution, whether private cloud, on-prem or off-prem. You know, if you already have a very good data center, and for latency and things like that, and your data, you know, security-wise and so on, you want to be on premises, we can explore, you know, together and see if you can deploy HPE GreenLake solution. Yeah. Otherwise, if you do not have a, you know, a tier 3, tier 4 data center, we provide private cloud also, different flavors as well. And we can also deploy HPE GreenLake in hosted environment too. Yeah. But do take a look at, your application first, because you know, don't try to, I mean, if your application is already not too modern, you know, you may think about really redeveloping the application rather than, you know, doing a patch job, which may not be that good. Yeah. Thank you.
The next question I think is specific to GreenLake. If I'm considering GreenLake as an on-premise solution, would there be a minimum type of virtual machines that this solution will be more cost-effective for me? Maybe we can have Lim Ping answer that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the question. So for GreenLake modeling wise, right? If you recall just now, the 3 different components: hardware, and third-party software as well as services. So the question is there a minimum kind of configuration to start with? The straightforward answer is no, as long as it's technically feasible to actually configure in terms of hardware portion. So similar to like a CapEx model, the amount of hardware you require, right? Whichever is possible to configure, then it's possible on GreenLake as well. Then you're asking whether it's cost effective or not. That's a kind of a not say separate discussion, but then as long as the pricing makes sense to you, then it is possible to do the configuration. But of course, for GreenLake, because we have some additional services that we add on, for example, for capacity planning summary, in terms of right-sizing the infrastructure for you. So there's some additional services cost that's added onto the basic model as well. So if we package together already and the pricing makes sense to you, then in that sense, no, there's no minimum, so to speak. Yeah, thank you.
The next question I have here is with regard to the cloud networking. So I think, Sander, you mentioned about Teridion is on multiple clouds. So maybe can we understand in terms of the local connection, how's the redundancy aspects? And then is there any way we can test out the solution?
If I understood your question correctly, it's regarding the first and last mile. Is that correct, Joshua?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, very good question. Thank you very much for that question. So yeah, if you make it very sort of easy to understand, you have an office in China and an office in Amsterdam, just as an example, and you have FortiGate deployed. So you have in every office a FortiGate deployed. Then you need to connect that FortiGate device with a local loop, with a local internet, of course, to the local POP, the local entry point of the data center of Microsoft, can be AWS, can be Google. And redundancy-wise, it can be that we can connect to 4 ISPs. So it can be multiple POPs, it can be multiple ISPs. So redundancy-wise, this is of course fully sort of incorporated in the service. So hopefully this is answering your question, Joshua.
Yes, that's part one of the question. The other part was whether we can. Okay, go on. That's another. Okay, the second part is regarding whether it's possible to test that. Is there a POC or something like that?
Absolutely, because of course it sounds nice that we can do this in 24 hours, and it sounds like a very nice sales pitch. But yes, absolutely, we can do this free of charge for our customers. So if there is a valid opportunity in the sense that they have a headache, they have an issue, they have pain, they are having unreliable connections between, let's say, Singapore and the cloud in Europe, just as an example, we always make it part of the sales cycle to prove it, so they can actually test the production environment free of charge for 7 days, and we can show them that we can do that in 24 hours. It's easy to work with, and of course, yes. So yes, confirmed. They can test themselves how it works and if it's indeed a high performance connection. So yes.
Okay, thank you, Sander. Yes, so if any of us wants to test out the solution, feel free to write us an email, info@accrets.com. Okay,
Yep.
the next question we have on the screen. My organization is exploring the opportunities of cloud services. If it fits the bill, they will adopt it by migrating their computing environment. Therefore, at a high level point of view, what are the important things to do beforehand? Teng Yeow, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I can take that question. Well, I have a customer who come to me and say, I have 500 servers that I want to migrate. So again, if you look at 500, especially in terms of application, if you don't do a basic inventory, you don't list the importance of the apps and prioritize, you're not going to be able to fully move 500 applications. And customer, basically you need to look at it and say, okay, this application, is it suitable to be hosted on public cloud, or maybe a better solution is to have GreenLake on premises, or maybe GreenLake hosted, or maybe multiple cloud solution. So it's not as simple as that. Oh, okay, all this we are going to migrate into GreenLake, or all this we're going to migrate into AWS. Okay, my customer wanted to migrate 500 instances into Ali Cloud. I told him it's impossible. The reason is simple, because public cloud don't allow you to do a movement based on VM. It's still a purely installation, and the operating systems is fixed flavor. Yeah, and to move about 500 servers will be impossible. So I think it's a case-by-case basis, but I think it's a better idea to start small, have a feel of what cloud is before you start planning your migration journey. Yeah, I have a similar customer who started with us with one VM. Now they have close to 100 and different kind of cloud setup. Yeah. So hopefully I answer your questions. It's not a single simple solution to just say, okay, AWS or whatever. Yeah. Thanks, Joshua, for the question.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for the question. I think like what Teng Yeow say, this one we will probably have a look at the overall picture. So I encourage you to probably write us an email, info@accrets.com. We probably can arrange a time to go into more detailed discussion to understand various aspects of your environment, so that we can give you a better idea and share with you some different strategies that we have shared with our other clients. Yeah. Okay. At this moment, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I guess I'll hand back the time over to Radhika to close off this session. Radhika?
Hello.
Yep.
Hey, Josh. Okay, so sure. So I would like to thank all the attendees that present here, and also our respected speakers who were there to explain the cloud networking and what happens with when they are collided with the different multi-cloud strategies. So thank you so much, and the recordings would be available for everyone on their emails.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very
Bye-bye.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello. Hello, Joshua. Oh, we are leaving. Okay. Anything to talk before I leave?